Lesson 8 of the core curriculum for Level 1 Regimental Highland Broadsword is an elbow lock. Starting from the outside guard, the opponent goes to make a cut to my inside high. I don't do this, which is shifting back and parrying on the inside guard, which is how you would normally respond to that cut. Instead, I step in as I parry in the inside guard. My left arm snakes around his arm, my right foot steps forward, and I lock his elbow and get my point in his face. Or I can either compel him to surrender or just finish him off. Now, as with a lot of the techniques, this is a little more complicated than it looks, because there's some things you have to do in order to do it right. He goes for the cut. I have to come around on his inside. A lot of people, after they see the technique the first time, they try to do it like this. You need to come in this way. You wrap around, and you have to make sure his elbow actually locks. So your forearm comes in just above the elbow and goes until he's forced up onto tiptoe. Because when he's forced up onto tiptoes, you can see that his spine starts to arch back, and the spinal cord being distorted is the key to all of the command techniques. That's what shows that you actually have control of him. So there you see, yeah, he wants to tap out, but instead he gets the sword through his throat. All right, so now he's going to do it. We're in the outside guard. I go to make cut 1 to the left cheek. He steps in on the parry. His arm goes, yeah, and it locks, and you see me arch back. And yes, he stabs right through my throat, as he just so dramatically indicated. Okay, so a couple of details on that. You actually did do it pretty much right, but there's a few things you want to make sure you do. When I go for the cut, yep, that arm comes in here and snakes around. Okay, you don't have to grab my arm like that. You can just grab it. Okay, and this arm wants to come up this way. That's what's going to actually lock me. And that's when you see me forced up onto tiptoe. That's the elbow lock. Okay, then we have Lesson 9 of the core curriculum for Level 1 Regimental Highland Broadsword. It's another variation on the bind. This is a bind followed by a thrust. So we're on the inside guard. The antagonist goes to make cut 2, which is to cut my right cheek or my outside high. I step forward as I parry on an outside guard. Then my left foot is going to pass forward as I bind him over, and I just stab right here. And it goes right up under his rib cage or right in between his ribs. What you don't want to do is have the blade profiled like this, because the rib cage could block the blade. You want it horizontal so that the blade will slip in between the ribs and go up into his lung, ideally. So it's a bind because you're parrying and then pushing his arm over to the side, but it's a different bind than the Turkish disarm. So he goes to make cut 2. I get the parry. I push his arm to the side, and I stab up in between the ribs. You do want to keep your left hand on his arm so he can't come back on you, but you don't need to grab it like you're trying to hold on for dear life. You actually have more control if you just push. Your arm is a lot stronger than your fingers. Your body's a lot stronger than your fingers. You just want to use the arm as a lever and put your body weight behind it rather than trying to grasp him with your fingers. That won't work. Okay, so now Andy's going to give it a try. I'm going to make cut 2. He's going to step in and parry. Yep, push me this way and stab in between the ribs. Now, you could see Andy trying to decide whether he wanted to grab me up by the elbow or by the wrist. Either one could work, but the elbow gives you more control. All right, one more time. Lesson 10 of the core curriculum, Level 1 Regimental Highland Broadsword. We're going to start on the hanging guard, and it's going to be a bind and thrust as a counter against a thrust. So the attack Andy's going to do is a thrust from the hanging guard. It's kind of a tricky thrust. I'm going to demonstrate just the thrust against him, so don't respond like I just catch you flat-footed, okay? So we're on the hanging guard. This is what he's doing. He's just lunging forward, and from the hanging guard, he doesn't even have to move his hand at all. It just goes into me. All right, so in a real bout, that thrust is more likely to be used after a parry. So let's say he makes a cut to my outside low. I parry, and then I repost with a hanging thrust. So In a real bout, the situation may be a lot more complicated and varied than it is in this lesson, but all we're showing is that we're on a hanging guard and he just thrusts by lunging forward. So when he does that, the protagonist parries it off to the side with outside half hanger and binds and thrusts. It's the same bind and thrust as we saw in lesson 9. Now, the parry that you're seeing here really works from any guard against any thrust. It's to just shift back and do a sweeping outside half hanger. So if he was in an inside guard, let's say, and I'm in an inside guard, and he goes to thrust at me, I can use that same outside half hanger parry. And if you do it with the right kind of sweeping movement, it's what's called a whirl, which whirls the opponent offline and can even disarm him if you're lucky. If he does a straight thrust like this, whirl him to the side and come in. We're showing it from the hanging guard. He lunges in, I do the outside half hanger parry, I bind his arm off to the side, and I finish with a thrust. Now he's going to be the protagonist. I lunge, and that's it. A couple more times. Okay, so as you're getting the parry, you want to be moving in. And you want to stab up through the ribs, not the hip. And again, you see this twist in the spinal cord. That's the key to these command techniques. And that's lesson 10.